Good day, everyone. So we are the last group 12, and our topic is servicing the air conditioning unit. So the following presenter or reporter are Miss Manyalak, followed by Miss Cacho, and the third one is Miss Legaspi. Fourth reporter is Miss Maan, and the last reporter is Miss Fabaliña. And the presenter or the PowerPoint presenter is Miss Bertulano. Let's proceed on Miss Manyalak as the first reporter.
Thank you, Miss Bookie. So, wala yung ko, yung drip history ng air conditioning. Ayan pala. Kasi what I said, so here's the brief history of air conditioning. So the first modern air conditioner was invented in 1902 by Willis Haviland Carrier, a skilled engineer who began experimenting with the loss of humidity control to solve an application problem at printing plant in Brooklyn, New York. So the first modern air conditioner was invented in 1902 by Willis Carrier, or the father of the air conditioner. So in 1904, marble of manufactured air is introduced at the St. Louis Fair. 1906, Stuart Kramer creates the term air conditioning. 1914, first air-conditioned home. 1925, air conditioning premieres to the public at the Rivoli Theatre. So, in 1953 naman, home air conditioning rises 1 million units sold. 1960s, 1 out of 5 American homes now have air conditioning. 1970s, central air rises in popularity and window units become less popular. So in 1990s, energy efficiency of air conditioners becomes more important. And 2000 up to now, 87% of US homes now have an air conditioning, or up to now, 700 million air conditioning needs to install worldwide. Next po. So, what is air conditioning? Air conditioning is the process of removing heat from a confined space, thus cooling the air and removing humidity. Air conditioning can be used in both domestic and commercial environments. This process is used to achieve a more comfortable interior environment, typically for humans or animals. So, air conditioning means to filter the air and keeps both humidity and temperature at their exact level. So, air conditioning is everyone. Of course, you will see it most of the time at your house, if you have one. So, and also to the convenience store, supermarkets, or at the place that need to install AC, right? So, next po. So, air conditioning also used to achieve a more comfortable interior for both humans and animals. So, when the summer comes, 'di ba? Mainit sa Pilipinas, even though we have an electric fan, tas it feels like we're inside in the oven. So, or whatsoever, because the temperature is hot. So, in animals naman, they feel uncomfortable. 'Di ba? Pag hindi maano yung paligid nila. So, and also, it can remove anti-microorganism. The best example of microorganism is dust. Next po. Why we need aircon? So, due to various sources of heat, the temperature inside the room becomes very high, and the relative humidity can also be high. Further, there can be less flow of air inside the room. All these factors leads to creation of highly uncomfortable conditions inside the room. So, we need aircon, especially nowadays. Climate change is Climate change is one of our major problems, di ba? Sometimes there are days na rainy days, then probably there are days na sobrang init. Lalo na yung months daw is March to May. But due to climate change nga, sometimes may day na sobrang init kahit hindi naman tag rainy days. Ayan. So, the function of the air conditioner is temperature control, humidity control, ventilation, and air circulation. So next, let's proceed to the types of air conditioner. Next po, so here's the types of air conditioners. The first type is the split air conditioning. Next. So, split type air conditioners, from the word itself is split, because these types of air conditioning consists with two parts, the indoor unit and the outdoor unit. So, indoor unit, from the word indoor, siya yung nasa loob ng room. So, typically, a furnace or a fan coil includes the evaporator coil and blower fan or the air handle that circulates air throughout the home. So, next unit is the outdoor unit, holds the compressor and the condenser. So, classmate, as you can see, you will know that they use a split aircon when you will see that when you will see the outdoor unit of this kind of air conditioning. So, you will often see this type of aircon at the pawn shop or the LBC, M. Louvillier. Yeah. So, there are types of split air conditioning. So, next po. Yan. The first type of air conditioning is the ceiling mounted or the cassette unit. So, they are the best suited to rooms with a pulse or suspended ceiling and are ideal for use in offices and shops. So, of course, from the word ceiling, it means it is placed in the ceiling. So, you will often see this kind of air conditioning at 7-Eleven because ceiling mounted is the ideal use for offices and shops to have more spaces, 'di ba? Next po, the next type of split air conditioner is the floor mounted. Or floor air conditioner is another type of air conditioner unit that is commonly used in places such as restaurants, halls, motels, data centers. So from the word itself, floor, it is basically standing on the floor, not in the window, not from the ceiling. So this kind of air conditioning commonly see in Jollibee. Yun nga, 'di ba? Place as restaurants, halls, motels, and data centers. So the next type of split air conditioner, next po, is the duct type. So, ducted air conditioning provides heating or cooling through a system of ducts spread out all over your home or commercial space. It provides cool or hot air, which is then distributed throughout the building through a series of ducts and vents, providing the appropriate climate control. Duct type air condition naman, you can usually see it at the Super 8. There's a vent and ducts that both hot or cool air releases to maintain the level of temperature, and it is more efficient than window type air conditioning and split type. Next po. The next type of air conditioning is the window air conditioning system. So, window air conditioning system are one of the most commonly used and cheapest type of air conditioners. So, this is the most commonly aircon in the Philippines because it fits everywhere. Anywhere, like if you want to have one, you can easily buy and install. So, this is the window type air condition, and it's very suitable and recommended to install at single room, and it's designed at the window of a room. So, less activity when it comes to installation, di ba? One advantage of window air conditioner is that they can be taken with you when you move houses. Next is the package air conditioning system. So, package air conditioner is a bigger version of the window air conditioner. So, the package air conditioner I use for the cooling capacities in between these two extremes, or the window types and split type. It has a higher cooling or heating capacity and is usually able to cool an entire house or a building or a commercial building than window type and split type. Next po. There are two kinds of package air conditioner, the air cooler and the water cooler. So, air-cooled system remove heat from the unit by pushing it into the air. So, this hot air can be pushed out directly into the outdoors with units that are outside the home, such as window unit. So, since air-cooled system don't need a water source, they can be installed anywhere in the house within minutes, not hours. So, air-cooled units can also be moved around the home without any concern for water sources. So, water coolers, on the other hand, cost more when it comes to installation because it requires a water source and take a bit more for maintaining, but they are much more efficient at heat transferring and cooling down hot air. So the last types of air conditioning is the central air conditioning system. So the central air conditioning plants or the system are used when large buildings, hotels, theaters, airports, shopping malls, etc. are to be air conditioned completely. So, central air condition is very efficient because this kind of air conditioning can cool a large places, such as large building, hotels, theaters, airports, and shopping malls. So, central air conditioning uses the delivery system such as vents, plenums, ducts, or your forced air heating system to provide cool conditioner air. Next po. So let's proceed to the wiring diagram. So what is wiring diagram? A wiring diagram is a simple visual representation of the physical connection and physical layout of an electrical system or circuit. It shows how the electrical wires are interconnected and can also show where fixtures and components may be connected to the system. So it is a simple visual representation of some physical connections and physical layout. You will see at this wiring diagram of how being interconnected those system. So next. Next po. So the first types of wiring diagram is the schematic diagram. The word schematic means a plan, outline, or model. So a schematic diagram is a graphical representation of a plan or a model that is presented in a simple, accessible way. Schematics use simple lines and symbols to communicate information such as what, how, and where. A schematic diagram used for electronics uses standardized symbols, simple line drawings to represent various electronics components that in standardized symbols make it possible for any experienced electrician to read and understand any schematic diagram. I have an example of the schematic diagrams. Yan. If you remember what Mr. Buligan discussed about the wiring diagram, this is the schematic diagram of a single or window type unit of air conditioning. This is the example. Yes. Next po. The next diagram is the pictorial diagram. A pictorial diagram uses pictures to represent the different components of a particular system. Pictorial diagrams can vary in level of detail. Some diagrams may have realistic pictures to make the various components easier to identify. Others might have simple sketches that can easily be understood by the average person working on a weekend project. So I have the example of the pictorial diagram. Instead, I have no um, yung mismo picture ng ng window type unit ng aircon. So here's the na lang example. Yan. In a pictorial diagram, that's the example. Yun lang po. Thank you.
So I'm Jane Rosel Cacho and my report is all about wiring diagram of air conditioner. So since there are many types of AC, I will only show the two most common air conditioning unit, which are the window type and split air conditioner. So first is the window type. Sige pa, Lai. So this is the outside wiring of window type air conditioner. So as you can see here, there are electrical panel, disconnect means, and the window AC unit. So the first is the electrical panel. So the power source comes from electrical panel and it's connected to the disconnect means and connected to the window AC unit. So kaya siya tinawag na disconnect means because you can connect or disconnect the AC unit to the power source by plugging or unplugging it to the outlet. So next is the internal wiring of window type air conditioner. So next slide. So the main power cord has split into three wires, which are the ground wire, hot wire, and neutral wire. So if you connect the plug of AC to the power source, the electricity will flow first to the hot wire and into the selector switch or the rotary switch. So ano ba yung mga nasa rotary switch? 'Di ba? Andito yung on off or yung mga switch sa fan speed kung low speed or high speed. So 'di ba? And then the rotary switch will command the fan motor, the thermostat, and the compressor. So next is the neutral wire. So the neutral wire is the path of the electricity to return to its power source. So di ba nga electricity always tries to return to its power source. So si neutral wire, siya yung magsisilbing path ng electricity pabalik sa power source. So again, from the power source, dadaan siya sa hot wire papunta sa selector switch. And then si selector switch naman is i-command niya si fan motor, thermostat, and compressor. And si neutral wire, siya yung magbabalik ng electricity pabalik sa power source. So next is the ground wire. So si ground wire naman, it's connected to the metal casing of the window type air conditioning and walang electricity na nagfo-flow sa kanya. Kumbaga nagsisilbi lang siya na emergency path ng electricity kung merong kung halimbawang maputol si hot wire or si neutral wire, yung electricity dun siya dadaan sa ground wire. So next slide. So next is the split type AC. So this is the outside wiring of split type AC. Again, the power source comes from the electrical panel and it's connected to the disconnect means, which is the outlet, and connected to the indoor unit, and the indoor unit is connected to the outdoor unit with the help of two cables, which is the power cable and the control cable. So si control cable, siya yung ito yung mga wire na nagko-command sa indoor and outdoor unit. Sila yung nagko-connect sa mga controller. And then si power unit naman, si power cable naman, yung electricity lang. Okay? So next is the internal wiring of window split type air conditioner. So first is the indoor unit. So as you can see, next slide, Lai. So So first is the indoor unit wiring. So as you can see here, there are 3 wires, the L, N, and E. So magkaiba lang yung nakuhanan ko ng source ng window type at split type. Pero itong L, N, and E is same with the hot wire, neutral wire, and ground wire. So L is for load or hot wire, N is for neutral wire, and E is for earth or ground wire. So, di ba na-discuss ko naman na paano gumagana yung tatlong wire na yon. So, again, the electricity will flow first to the load or hot wire, then to the main parts of the indoor unit, which are the power supply, indoor fan, controller, louvers, and sensor motors. Then, the electricity will back to the neutral wire to the main power source. So, next is the outdoor unit wiring. So, next slide. So, here are the outdoor next is the outdoor unit wiring. So here there are outdoor fan motor and compressor. So from the hot wire, it's connected to the fan motor and compressor. Then back to the neutral wire to the main power source, and the ground wire is connected to the metal casing of the outdoor unit. So next is some basic parts of air conditioner. So next slide. So next is air conditioner compressor. So since 'di ba lagi naman na siyang nadi-discuss, again, air conditioner compressor is used to remove the heat-laden vapor refrigerant from the evaporator of the air conditioning systems. O sa madaling salita, 'di ba si compressor, siya yung kumbaga siya yung tinuturing na heart of the system ng air conditioning unit and refrigeration. So how to maintain compressor motor? So first is remove any obstruction. So ito, applicable siya sa anong tawag dun, sa single unit at saka sa dual unit. Yung dual unit ayun yung may indoor unit at may outdoor unit. Remove any obstruction. Kung halimbawa meron kang outdoor unit, di ba nandun si compressor? So, syempre, si compressor yung gumagawa ng paraan para magbigay ng lamig doon sa indoor unit. So, kailangan walang nakaharang na ibang gamit or masyadong kulob kasi lalong iinit, dadagdag siya sa pag-overheat ng compressor. Kaya kailangan laging yung space niya is walang harang, ganyan. So, next is wrap the compressor. So, ito naman, applicable siya kung yung air conditioning mo or kung yung place mo is sa mga malamig, yung mga nagyayelo, ganyan. So, di ba si air compressor kasi, meron siyang yung mga crankshaft, yun yung parang part siya ng compressor na yung parang parang mga engine na hindi dapat siya, di ba pag nilamig kasi, mahihirapan yung engine na gumalaw. So, kailangan natin siyang i-wrap ng kahit na damit para lang hindi siya naman mag-freeze. Doon siya applicable. And then next is clean the air filters regularly. So, di ba ano ba yung mga natatrap sa air filter? Di ba yung dust or yung mga dirt? So, syempre, kapag ka napuno ng dust at saka ng dirt yung air filter, mahihirapan nga si compressor na mag-work. So, kailangan lagi siyang malinis para smooth lang din yung pagtakbo ng compressor motor. Next is clean the air filter regularly. So, ito yung most common na problem ng mga air conditioning unit. Or ito rin yung most common na dapat talagang ginagawa natin para mas mapanatiling maayos si compressor motor or kahit ibang parts ng aircon. Kailangan nating linisin lagi yung... Saan na ba ako? So, next is engage the high pressure switch. Ito namang high pressure switch, kailangan lagi natin siyang i-on kasi if ever na si compressor is makaramdam siya ng overheating, ito si high pressure switch, siya yung automatically na ipa-power off niya si compressor para makapahinga. And then 5, clean the condenser coils regularly. So same lang din siya sa kumbaga parang cleaning talaga to para mas maging effective si compressor motor. 'Di ba si condenser coils, siya yung nag-i-store ng energy, minsan nag-overheat din siya. So kapag lagi natin siyang nililinis, mape-prevent natin yung overheating ng air conditioner, compressor motor. So yun lang po.
Naririnig ako?
Yes po.
Okay. So, good day everyone. I'm the third discussant of this group. I'm LEGASPI Marilyn, and the topic that I'm going to discuss is motor capacitor and checking capacitor. So, first is, I will define what is capacitor. Next slide po. So, capacitor is an electronic device that components that store energy in electric field and release it by quickly charging and discharging its plate. So it also used in blocking DC, timing, and also in power supply. And it also used in shifting the voltage out of phase with the current, which create a lag in the current resulting. So in the rotation of the shaft of the motor, without a capacitor, the voltage is rises at the same time. So yung current and the shaft will does not return. Then, in air conditioning unit talaga, yung capacitor is may malaking part ng cooling. Siya yung responsible for starting and turning the motors. Siya rin yung nagte-turn ng fan into the condenser into the evaporator. And yung compressor, siya yung nagko-compress sa freon before loading it to the condenser. So next is, so when it comes in aircon, we have two types of capacitor. So si starting capacitor at running capacitor. So when we say starting capacitor, it is found the circuit of start windings when the motor is starting. This capacitor contains a higher capacitance than run a capacitor. It varies, but start capacitor will measure between 70 and 120 microfarad. So, when we say starting capacitor, siya yung responsible sa pagpapastart ng aircon. Especially kapag malaki yung microfarad niya. Di ba sinabi yun ni Sir last time? Also, yung start capacitor is nagpo-provide ng immediate electrical push to get the motor rotation started. So, note lang dito na without a start capacitor, when the voltage is applied, the motor would just hum or just sounds like a bee. So, that's why the starting capacitor is very important. Then the next one is running capacitor. Some single-phase AC electrical motor requires run capacitor to energize the second phase winding. So to create a rotating magnetic field while the motor is running. So when we say running capacitor naman, ito yung responsible for retained pull on the motors para mas maging efficient yung motors natin kasi imbis na sa power source lahat kukunin, capacitated na yung energy na ginagamit niya. Which is, ayun yung electricity na nanggagaling sa capacitor. And also, yung run capacitor is nagre-rated ng range ng 1.5 to 100 microfarad. So, with a voltage na may classification na 250, 370, and 440 voltage. So, as I remember sa sinabi ni Sir nakaraan na kapag hindi fit yung voltage is magkakaroon ng problema si compressor. So next is next slide po. So in run capacitor, we have two types of capacitor, which is si single and dual. Si single run is may 2 poles, while si dual run naman is may 3 poles. So, what is single run capacitor? It hooks up to a single motor, and it is more commonly used in a smaller HVAC system like small air conditioners. So, when we say single run capacitor, meron siyang two version, which is yung isa is for giving a power to a compressor motor, tapos yung isa naman is for giving a power to a fan motor. So, etong single run capacitor, they need to be shorted in the common line to of contactor. Kasi yung single capacitor is meron lang two terminals, which is yung isa nga is for compressor motor and the other one is for a fan motor. So then the next type of capacitor in run capacitor is dual run capacitor. It is a capacitor that can support both fan and motor and the compressor motor. So when we say dual run capacitor naman, ito is supported niya na yung both motors. So no need nang i-short yung terminals niya na galing doon sa common line ng contactor which is yung power. Then yung dual run capacitor, gaya ng sabi ko kanina, meron siyang 3 poles or 3 terminals, which is yung isa is for the common line, and the other one is for a fan, and the last one is for a compressor. So next is, yan. As you can see, itong figure na to, sinama ko lang to kasi ito yung medyo comprehensive or mas naiintindahan. Yung diagram is merong starter at run capacitor. So, yung run capacitor dito is dual. Pwede siyang palitan ng 2 single run capacitor. Gaya nga ng sinabi ko kanina na yung single run capacitor, merong 2 terminals na fit din dito sa run capacitor. Pero hindi naman maapektuhan kasi ganun pa din naman yung magiging function niya. Yan. The next is so when the aircon suddenly start giving of less cool that is supposed to give, or when the fan suddenly fails to turn, it's likely to be capacitor failure. So dito napapasok yung checking capacitor. So kapag di natama yung nabibigay na lamig ng aircon, ibig sabihin is may problema na si compressor. Then the capacitor might be, next slide po. So, first is, shorted capacitor means the material between plates has become a conducting material. So, either it lost the capacitor fluid or the material expanded and touches each adding to short. So, meaning to say, the resistance of shorted capacitor is always low. The next is open capacitor. So it means that the capacitor resistance is always high and does not increase or decrease. So magkakos siya ng open circuit. Then the third one is leaking capacitor fluid. So when we say leaking capacitor fluid, nagkakos siya ng short capacitor. Tapos yung fluid na yon na nag-leak sa capacitor are called electrolytes. So yung fluid na yon is very corrosive or very harmful. Kapag na-expose siya to the environment, it might be dangerous hindi lang para sa capacitors natin, but also in the wires that near and below the capacitor body. Then next is bloated or broken. So dito gaya ng sinabi ni Sir, 'di ba, na must be replaced na kasi yung bloated capacitor, di niya na need i-test kasi it can be determined easily by visual test. Then the next is common reason why capacitor go bad. So the first is exposure to high heat in extended periods of the time. Next is replacing the old capacitor with wrong voltage rating. So kapag mali or hindi fit yung voltage na nilagay doon is nagkakos siya ng shortened life ng capacitor. Then the third is the capacitor has reached its design lifespan. So once na nasira na yung capacitor natin, disposable na siya because it fails to achieve the rate it was supposed to achieve or degrade or leaking. So it replaced quickly na. Masasabi kasi nating okay pa yung capacitor kapag yung resistant will be low in the beginning and will gradually increase. So parang mababa siya sa umpisa, then habang tumatagal is tumataas siya. So once na yung capacitor not displaced like this, ibig sabihin yung capacitor is must have gone bad or may sira na. Then next is, there are many ways in checking aircon capacitor. There are the steps needed to be taken in servicing, checking, in air conditioning unit. So next is, next po. So in checking capacitor, first is, prepared the tools needed to be checking capacitor, like screwdriver, long nose, and pliers, multitester, capacitor tester, and others that they need. The next is turn off the air conditioning unit and unplug from the outlet. So, very self-explanatory na to. Then third is locate and open the box of the air conditioning unit using the screwdrivers. Then next is the fourth one. Locate the capacitor and disconnect the wires on on its terminal. AC capacitor are common in silver in color. So always nating tatandaan na yung capacitor is kulay silver siya. Be careful not to touch the terminals to prevent the shock from the charged capacitor or para hindi tayo mag-ground. Then the fifth one is discharge the capacitor by shorting it with screwdrivers. So dito, let the metal part of the screwdriver to touch the common terminal. And also the pan or herm terminal at the same times. This will create a closed circuit discharging the capacitor. So may also use the pliers, long nose to discharge resistor for safe. Then last is check if the capacitor is still good or is dead. So may also remove the capacitor from the box before checking for a large working space. Then next. So next is method of checking capacitor. So dito meron tayong tatlong pwedeng gamitin to check the capacitor. The first one is using a capacitor tester. Yan, nakikita niyo sa picture. Then next one is using a multi-tester voltmeter. Then last, yan, using a simple voltmeter. Then actually, meron siyang step bawat gamit ng mga pag-test ng capacitor. Pero hindi ko na siya nilagay kasi sobrang dami niya talaga. So nilagay ko na lang is yung possible na pwedeng gamitin kapag mag-check tayo ng capacitor, which is ayang tatlong basic na check na pwede gamitin. So yun lang.
So, good evening, everyone. I'm the fourth discussant and my topic is all about air conditioner fan motor. Pa-next po. So, what is fan motor? The air conditioner fan motor derives the AC fan which blows air in and out of the house. This is the important for moving hot air to the outside of the building as well as blowing cool air through the ductwork and into the room. So it said here that the AC fan motor acts to release the heat from the room and the release cold air into the room. It also said that the fan motor is the very important because it is the one that releases the heat outside the building. And also, the fan motor is a vital part that must be running well for the AC unit to do its job. Pa-next po. The next is diagnosing a faulty air conditioner fan motor. So, there's a number of strange symptoms that might be produced by a faulty fan motor. The first is if your AC is making an odd sound, running very loud, breathing or clacking, this may be sign that some of parts of the motor or fan is lost. When it's create a strange noise in our AC, it's either there are parts in the fan are removed and removed from the motor or from the fan of our AC. Next po. The second fault diagnosing faulty of our air conditioner is if the fan motor periodically shut up and suddenly or repeated, this could indicate an electrical problem. When sinasabi niya na once na yung AC fan motor natin is suddenly na lagi siyang namamatay or always die, we really need to replace our fan motor because it is not immediately replaced or fixed. We will cause the electrical problem of our air conditioner. The third one is if the fan simple doesn't turn even when the motor is getting powered, this probably means that the fan motor is burned. It is said here that when we turn on the AC and then the fan doesn't work, but the motor work, it is probably the most problem of our fan motor is burned out some parts of it. The fourth one is the performance of fan motor can gradually eventually that the AC system is not able to adequately cool the house. It is said here that our our AC motor have been around for a while. The performance of their motor always change. Sometimes it doesn't release enough cold air when all that needs to done is to upgrade the AC unit of our air conditioner. Then next po. So the next is the three issues about the fan speed. The first one is the motor issue. Motor is so every fan of our AC have a own motor. So those fan motor will be has wiring that provides power. So once that fan doesn't work, when there is something wrong with the wiring or some of operating issues with the motor. Next po. The next one is the fan belt. It is said here that the fan belt can be stretched, cracked, and broken during the normal wear and tear. When the fan belt are broken, this can result in the fan not working or it won't work all. You really need to replace the fan belt because if you can't replace it immediately, the fan belt can fix it. The third one is malfunction of run capacitor. The run capacitor creates the rotating magnetic field in the system of condenser coil. So if the capacitor does not work probably it will cause the fan to slow down or overheat. Next po. So there are ways to help to maintain our air conditioner fan. So every part of your air conditioner is going to experience wear and tear, but there are things that you can done to extend the life of the fans in your system. Next po. There are the steps that we need to follow to maintain the good quality of our air conditioner fan. The first is put your fan on the correct setting on your thermostat is important. So it is said here that we need to set the correct settings of our thermostat. There are three settings that we need to follow: the on, off, and the auto. Kailangan natin itong sundan para hindi magkaroon ng zero or magkaroon ng electrical problem once na i-open na natin yung air conditioner. The second one is the fan in your air conditioner will get dirt. So we need to clean our air conditioner weekly and need to maintain the cleanliness of it to avoid the wire tart during na gagamitin na natin to. Next po. The next is the servicing electrical section. This installment describes when and how each electrical components of an air conditioning system is electrically powered on. It is said here that the purpose of our air conditioner is to remove heat from our house and leaving cool and comfortable even in the hottest summer. Next po. So the next is the air conditioner parts and function. The first parts of our air conditioner is the compressor motor. An, an air compressor motor provides power to the compressor head. It is said here that the compressor motor compresses and forces quality of an air either into the storage tank or directly through a fan. The next is the overload protector. An overload protector is an electrical device that we use for compressor protection. Whenever the compressor temperature high from his range, the compressor overload cut off the electrical supplies of it. Next po. The next part is relay. The relays consists a low voltage coil and high voltage switch, sometimes called contact points. When the thermostat switch on, a voltage signal generally energize the appropriate relay. The next is the switch. We all know that the switch is one of the important parts of our air conditioner. An air conditioner system thermostat is a switch to turn on or off the AC equipment as indoor air temperature. Next po. So, next is yung pan. The pan is you change the temperature settings here based on your needs. The higher you set the thermostat, the lower your cooling bills will be. Next po. So, the the last is the proper maintenance of the electrical section. It is said here that it is better that we always check AC, our air conditioner to find out what is still properly, because it will be the difficult or there will be a problem if you don't always check our AC. Next po. The first proper maintenance is always wrap the compressor, because when we live in the areas that have a wet weather session, we must find a way to protect our air conditioner compressor. All we have to do is put the cover of our compressor that we did not get dirt. Next po. Engine, the high pressure switch. So our AC have this compressor switch to prevent our air conditioner from overheating. Next po. The last is keep our thermostat clean. We need to always clean the thermostat, and the proper way to clean this is to have a brush or the compressor air cooling itself in the thermostat. This is what they use to clean so that they do not easily the other parts, or they do not easily na mas ma-damage or masira yung ibang parts neto, kaya yung brush yung ginagamit nila o kaya yung compressor air. Yun lang po.
Good day, everyone. I am FABALIña, and I am your last discussant. Our next topic is servicing mechanical section, focusing on condenser and evaporator. Servicing means performing routine maintenance. So no matter how much the air conditioner operates, it's important to perform routine maintenance that keep the evaporator and condenser coils and the rest of the system runs efficiently. Ang ating aircon naman hindi yan one flip of our finger, mapapalamig na agad ang room natin. Instead, they use refrigerant or coolant to absorb heat from the air, carry that heat outdoors, and release it into the air outdoors. The refrigerant circulates continuously to remove more and more heat from our home until our indoor air temperature reaches the one we've chosen on the thermostat. So evaporator and condenser coils handle different sides of the cooling system, but works together to cool our home. So first, let's discuss how to maintain and keep the condenser of our aircon. So the coil outside the room is where the condenser is located. Next. So the condenser, it contained in the large square unit outside the house. The fan on the top of the outdoor unit blow air over the condenser coil so the refrigerant inside loses heat. So in your left side, it is the animated illustration where our aircon is illustrated. So yung may box, it is a condenser and a fan. And in your right side, it is the actual photo of our aircon. Ang ating condenser is located outside of our homes. Siya yung nakausli na part ng ating aircon. Doon kung saan siya nasa labas. So next is it actually contains multiple components including the condenser tubes and fins, the compressor, a fan, a copper tubing. So the fan on top of the outdoor unit blows air over the condenser coil so the refrigerant inside loses heat. If you can see at the illustration earlier, the condenser is also having a fan, which is the condenser fan, that helps to the condenser to help releases heat inside our home. So the moisture inside the air conditioner could react with the compressor coils and form a corrosive substance which is eventually damage the condenser and other parts of the aircon. So I have here a trouble that may encounter on our condenser. So first is the refrigerant leaks. So sabi ko nga kanina na once yung ating refrigeration cycle started, there is a possibility na magkaroon ng moisture inside our aircons which will end up on rusting. At alam naman natin na if yung kinalawang ang coil, numinipis siya which will lead to leakages. So next is dirty coils. So ang condenser natin is located outside our home so they can be dirty due to many elements. Yung dust or yung mga dahon ng puno or sometimes napapatakan siya ng ulan which will contribute to rusting din. Next is condenser fan issue. So ang condenser fan natin is tumutulong din, sabi ko kanina, to transfer heat from the refrigerant system into our outdoor air at para din hindi ma-overheat yung ating compressor. So ang capacitor so nagkakaroon ng trouble ang condenser fan because of some reason like kapag ang capacitor natin ay nag-overheat, running too long, or nasobrahan siya masyado nang matanda yung aircon natin. So the condenser will no longer operate. So I have here also some way to maintain or to keep our condenser in shape. So first is check the condenser periodically. So and if you notice debris build up, pag sinabing debris build up, yun yung mga broken pieces or damages. So sometimes may mga pumapasok na dumi sa condenser, lalo na nga at it is located outside. So first to do is to shut the power of our system, then clean it using a stiff brush to gently clean the fins. So bakit stiff brush? Because yung stiff brush natin is malambot yung brush niya which is nakakatulong para ma-clean ng maayos yung ating condenser. At alam naman natin na ang electrical unit or electrical outlet is very sensitive. So kailangan na yung gamitin natin na panglinis is hindi siya maka-affect or hindi siya makapag-damage pa sa mga electrical system ng ating aircon unit or especially sa condenser which is focusing natin dito sa servicing maintenance. Next is protect the outdoor condenser from the elements by covering the top with a piece of wood held down at all four corners by bricks. So usually during winter sa other country, ginagawa nila na lagyan ng parang housing yung kanilang aircon to prevent from leaf blockage yung mga dahon and ice damage. Kasi pag winter doon, 'di ba, dumadami yung ice. So, makakaapekto ang ice sa ating condenser which is located nga outside. So kapag walang cover yung outside condenser natin, maaring mag-moist siya, then can cause trouble to our condenser. Sa atin naman dito sa Pinas, 'di ba, may mga home aircon din tayo. Nilalagyan din natin ng housing yung aircon natin, especially yung condenser unit natin to prevent also from leaf blockage and ganun din sa mga dumi ng ibon kasi lalo na if our aircon is located na malapit sa may mga puno. So yung mga ibon natin is yung dumi nila pumapatak doon sa aircon kapag walang housing. Tsaka also to protect from rain. Next is clean condenser with commercial coil cleaner. So kaya usually sa mga malalaking company or other factory, may hinahire sila na talaga na taga-maintain or taga-linis ng aircon kasi 'di ba when it comes to handling electricity, I also said earlier na very sensitive. So very sensitive our electricity outlet. So we must be very careful. Next is cut any grass, weeds or vines that have grown around condenser unit. So it is true to maintain our aircon, lalo na 'di ba yung condenser part, because it is located outside and minsan yung aircon natin is nasa lower part minsan nilalagay, hindi yung sa taas ng hindi siya lagi, minsan nasa baba siya, which is our grass and weeds is located. So kailangan natin na i-maintain and always check the condenser regularly para ma-protect from grass. So next. So next is evaporator, the part of system where the refrigerant absorb heat from the air inside the room. It is located inside or near the air handler where the blower fan is. So evaporator coil made from copper, steel, or aluminum, which because these metals can duct heat easily. If in your left side, if you can see the animated illustration, which is nakabox yung evaporator and blower. Kung kanina, yung ating condenser is located outside, our evaporator is located inside our room. So in your right side, it is the actual picture of our aircon wherein our evaporator is located. If nakikita niyo yung arrow, so nandiyan nakikita yung evaporator unit. So evaporator works with the condenser coil to complete the heat exchange process that produces cool air. So when the evaporator coil accumulates dirt, it begins to run slower and efficiently. So evaporator also encounter trouble like our condenser and also need maintenance. Next. Next slide. So first trouble of our evaporator is fan burns out. So it leads to evaporator fan to burn out when fan motors are overworked and lack of maintenance. So they tend to go bad and burned out. Next is dirty evaporator coil. So from the dust inside of our room. So yung ating condenser is encountered dust issue also, and so our evaporator too. For example, yung mga mahihilig sa aso at pusa, yung kanilang balahibo is maaari na maging sanhi ng ating evaporator to become dirty or reason to form any soiling, which will cause also para hindi gumana ng maayos ang ating evaporator. Next is not enough heat on the evaporator coil. So it happens because maybe there are troubles in other part of the system which affect the cycle of refrigeration at naglilid ito to not having enough heat on the evaporator coil. Next is refrigerant runs low. So it is because maybe leaks along the line or in the compressor happens. Next, last is clogged air filter. So of course, because of dust also, kaya nagkakaroon ng clogging. So when the filter is black, ang ating aircon has to work harder to keep up. So it put more pressure on the unit and cause it to become overheated. Next. So keeping the evaporator clean, we must always clean the coils with a vacuum cleaner. So keeping the evaporator coil clean and well maintained, it helps to maintain also the efficiency of the system. So once na lagi nating nililinisan siya, of course, nakakatulong siya to maintain our system at para mag-work siya ng work efficiently. Next is clean the aluminum fins with a soft brass. Air conditioner fins are very delicate and can be bent easily. So we use a soft brass as what I have said earlier. Yung brass is a small tool with soft brittles made for very delicately cleaning. So na makakatulong para sa ating electricity outlet para mag-stick siya at mag-work pa din siya kahit nilinisan. So let's proceed to the trouble that may encounter of our air conditioner. So I have here 10 parts of our aircon that is very prone to troubles. First is filter. One of the typical reason air conditioners don't work properly is clogged or dirty filter. So I have here an immediate solution. Change your filter. Some are monthly, other every 3 months, while some are usable and should be cleaned when they are dirty. So one way to determine if a filter needs to be cleaned is to check if any light passes through it. If not, it's time to clean it. Next is thermostat. So thermostat isn't get power and cannot signal the air conditioner. So another easy fix is to make sure your thermostat which control the temperature setting of our aircon. The immediate solution if our thermostat is exposing some trouble is to turn on the inside is clean, it's level, it's not being affected by sunlight, and it's on the correct setting. Refrigerant leaks. So the coolants start leaking in the air conditioner. So when the coolants start leaking in the air conditioner, the unit will not perform correctly and the temperature will fluctuate. So the immediate solution is replacing the separate components such as the coils or installing an entire new air conditioning unit depending on the severity of damage. One solution also is to the location of the leak will affect the cost of the repair. So having this examined yearly by a trained air conditioning technician is advised. So hindi naman tayo gaanong familiar sa mga part ng ating aircon which is encounter trouble. So always refer to air conditioner technician to repair it. Next is drainage. So the drain line clogged with dirt, dust, and lint. So like the filter, our drainage line can become clogged with dirt, dust, or lint. So if it becomes clogged, the drain pan will fill up and water will leak out potentially, causing damage to our air conditioning unit. So the immediate solution is to use the brush and push it inside the end of our air conditioned drain line. So kaya-kaya naman nating i-perform yan kapag nagkaroon ng drainage clog kasi madali lang naman siyang linisin. Like the other parts of our aircon na we need to get some advice to our aircon technician. Next slide. So breaker or fuses. So our breaker and fuses is the one who safeguard our air conditioning unit's motor or compressor from overheating. So often when a motor dies, one of the first part of our aircon aircon technician checks is our breaker. So some of the trouble that our breaker or fuses encountered is loose wire, short or electrical component failure. So the best solution or the immediate solution that we must do is call, of course, the technician or electrician, which is very very familiar to some trouble that may encounter of our air conditioning. So next is capacitors. So without capacitors, the motors that power the compressor and fan won't work. So the best solution that we must do is dismount the old capacitor and note how the wires are connected and install new capacitor according to the manual. If you can see in the picture, the capacitor is yung mga parang wire. So if it encounter trouble, so we must call also the technician, then replace a new one. Kasi isa ito sa napakahalagang part ng ating air condition na kailangan na laging maayos yung kanyang pag-function. Next. Next is our compressor. So if the compressor is not working, our air conditioning unit will not cool the house. So the trouble that may encounter of our compressor is black suction line, low refrigerant charge. So yung suction line is a copper line that runs between the compressor and the evaporator. And ang ating compressor carries cool refrigerant back to the compressor to be turned back into liquid. So the immediate solution is always best to call a trusted air conditioning specialist to come out to troubleshoot our aircon. Next is evaporator coils. So I already discussed earlier the evaporator coils trouble, which is coils corroded. So our condenser coils are located outside the compressor so they can become dirty due to the elements. So the best solution is typically only require maintenance every 3 years. Of course, hindi tayo magma-maintain ba yung talagang marunong sa ating air conditioning. Next. So, our condenser coils also encounter trouble, which is they can become dirty due to the elements also. So the best solution, I already discussed it earlier. They can usually be cleaned with a water hose once a year, but if they get too dirty, of course, air conditioning technician will have to clean them with a chemical cleaner. Last is worn contactor. So arching and pitting on the contactor is some of the troubles that our contactor experience. So the best solution is ensure the operating voltage of the application and the rated voltage of the contactor coil is compatible. So that is the part of our aircon that is very prone on trouble. So that's all. Thank you.